Chicken leg roll, what a way to welcome you to our broadcast on this Sunday. I'd like to use this opportunity to say it's a pleasant good day to you, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. If you just join us, I'd like to welcome you to a special conversation about global migration and global security and global peace. Today, we want to reflect briefly on the Ukrainian situation, the crisis that has engulfed Eastern Europe. What produces global migration? The challenges associated with it, a call for accountability and justice, a theological and liberative framework for tolerance, and and the call for a ceasefire is part of the conversation, the monologue we intend to have here briefly today, as God has laid on our mind that it is very important and as introspective as we are going to be today. We see the need for a clarion call for peace and for security, a clarion call for equity, a clarion call for the need for the global community to get engaged to see how there can be a way out of this particular crisis. It's quite troubling, and it behooves all of us, those of us who are the champions and drum beaters of justice and equity, to create some level of awareness and to bring the war's attention. And I know the war is deeply focused on what is happening there in the Ukraine. As far as we know, since February the 24th, 2022, Russia took her tanks, war tanks, across the border and marched into the territorial uh, area of Ukraine, and this crisis is deepening, and the challenges are enormous. And we just start on this Sunday. It will be quite important that we can look back and reflect from a justice standpoint why it is important for this particular crisis to come to an end. And we also want to make it unequivocally clear in this conversation that the need for justice and accountability for those who have creating the mayhem and the suffering of people in Ukraine is absolutely and vitally necessary. That the world community can gravitate to this. Peoples of goodwill throughout the length and breadth of the world, throughout the global community, can begin to look into this and ask some critical questions. It's just illogical. Vengeance, the human heart, and what it does, and some of the challenges that it has created within the political and geopolitical framework and global context itself as to some of the difficulties that it has brought for many of us. And those of us, the trauma that some of us continue to experience during this particular pivotal time within the context of where some of us have come from, to see what is happening in that part of Eastern Europe is quite a challenging situation. And we've come to empathize with the meek. We've come to empathize with the weak. We've come to empathize with those who are challenged, those who are going through difficulties this very, very moment. Those children, mothers, and elderly who have lived in the Ukraine all of their lives, and now they are challenged, and their rights are being trampled upon. And as a consequence of that, we find the difficulties, the mayhem that is taking place, the death of innocent people. We want to talk about that briefly from a theological and liberative perspective, and call on all of the parties to exercise maximum restraint and to ensure that the global community can gravitate to creating a framework for ceasefire. We think it's absolutely and vitally necessary that we have this conversation. So wherever you are, you can drop in your comments and your points just by way of our chat. We want to welcome you to the Christian Vision Broadcasting Network. We're transmitting today from Western Pennsylvania in the United States. Those monitoring us globally, if you just join us, I want to use this opportunity to welcome you on behalf of the management and staff on a Sunday Justice Forum on the Christian Vision Broadcasting Network. The conversation centers around the crisis in Ukraine and the need for people of goodwill to be able to create that framework, the absolute framework that is needed in ensuring that there's not only equity, that there is accountability, and that those of our brothers and sisters within Ukraine and those who are displaced. I mean, we're talking over probably 5 million people now, as far as the last time I checked, who have fled the country. And you have millions of people who are internally displaced. And it takes me back all the way to those war years. And I'll get to talk about that in West Africa. What the Liberian experience taught some of us, and the challenges people endured during that time of violence and of war and of anarchy. And it reminds me of what is taking place currently in Ukraine. We'll take a musical break. We'll be right back. All the way from South Africa, it's Lucky Dube. Yeah, reminding us of violence and war and anarchy, and when the rights of the poor are trampled upon, taking me all the way back many, many years ago, during the era of apartheid in South Africa, and that when the South African racist government was creating the mayhem on the suffering people of South Africa and minority rule. I remember growing up in West Africa during those challenging times. And one of the issues I thought to reflect on today in this program is the issue of global migration. What produces what creates this level of a mass movement of people? Why people move? And I think it's important to be able to bring some level of clarity and education for many of those who are viewing this program, who have had an opportunity, and sometimes it's quite difficult for some of our brothers and sisters to be able to clearly delineate and comprehend what produces global migration, why people move from one end to another, why people move. Why would someone want to just leave their home in a twinkling of an eye and get up and say, well, this is what they want to do? They want to leave and they just want to go somewhere. It's hardly incomprehensible, for someone to just get up in their right mind without a prevailing circumstances that they can just get up in the morning and say, well, you know what? I live in Pittsburgh, and I am going to leave Pittsburgh, and I'm moving across. I'm going to go into Mexico, you know, and it's highly unlikely. So the question that we're talking about today, just around what produces global migration, why they are refugees, why are they called refugees in the first place? Why these bickerings would take place and people are trampled upon within their particular geographical location, and they are what they they are forced to move, and as a consequence of that, that produces this particular level of mass migration. And when that is done, the rights of people are trampled upon, women and children are abused. There's a considerable level of violation that is taking place. That the people that are doing these things should be held accountable by the global community in retrospect to see what is prevailing in Ukraine itself. It's quite unimaginable. You know, the movement, that mass movement of people from one end to another. It's quite a challenging and a difficult situation. And many of us, as we see it, or we read it, or we hear about it, either on the TV or on the radio or on social media, some of us can look back. We can reflect. Memories come to us all the time. Those of us who have had war experience, you know what I'm talking about. To see the mass movement of people, see women moving from one end to another, it's quite troubling. It's challenging. And it's a threat to what? To global security. Once that is done, we are all threatened. That's the reality of the matter. Within the particular geopolitical context, that whatever affects one affects all. What is it? What are we going through right now? Inflation, the challenges that we are encountering, what is the price of gasoline, the prices of commodities. You go to the store and you can see how things have gone up in the past, what, probably over the past 50, 60 days, the considerable amount of the challenges that we are all encountering. And I was sharing with somebody, I was just doing some research about wheat. What is happening when the price of wheat is going up and countries that what have wheat as a staple. When the very two countries at local here at the moment as we speak, Ukraine and Russia practically are one of the two of the most powerful producing wheat countries in the world. I'm pretty tell me people, for instance, the south of the Sahara, people the south of the Sahara in the Horn of Africa, who are challenged, who are going through difficulties. I was just listening to the Christian News Network this morning, and it's telling us about the drought that is taking place in Ethiopia, in parts of Ethiopia, you know, and many parts of Africa. Not only that, but even itself within the continental United States of America. I mean, I'm talking about the continental North America. You're talking about California and other places. The drought and the issues surrounding climate change and some of the difficulties and challenges that we all encounter. This is global in nature. So whatever that is taking place within that particular part of Eastern Europe has a global context. Excuse me. It has that global context, and this is what's taking place. How do we gravitate to the level in which we can have love for humanity? Brothers and sisters, how can we gravitate to create an environment in which there will be more love and not hate? How do we create an environment in which there will be respect for the rule of law and respect for the rights of not only those that have power, not only the people at the top, but also the people at the bottom? Human dignity, the rights of women, the rights of children, the rights of the poor, of the weak and the meek. This is what we're talking about here concerning this level of global migration. Now, you see, people are moving from the Ukraine region, crossing the borders, whether they go into Romania, they go into Poland, they go into different parts of the NATO region and the European Union. They're spreading out. A bulk of these people are leaving not at their own will. Now, you also see that there are other people who are returning to Ukraine, because global migration, travel in itself is a very challenging proposition. Those of us who have had the experience and have had the time and the challenges to have lived, outside the borders of where you call probably a native land or a place of birth. You've witnessed war, you've seen violence, you've seen anarchy, and you've seen the considerable level of persecution taking place, either by religion or politics or by association. These things create problems day after day. And globally, within the global context itself, what does it tell us? It tells us that these things will continue to exist if we cannot create an avenue in which we will see each other as one common humanity and keep that at the bedrock of not only our faith but our way of life and the things that we do on a daily basis, how we treat people. That's the challenging situation that we have today in the world. And it's a challenging situation that we found now taking place as we sit here in Ukraine. So many of us can say uprightly that we are grateful on a Sunday like this that we have an opportunity to be able to speak to our people. We have an opportunity to be able to share an opinion of what is taking place, but it's also troubling, traumatizing as it is, because it takes some of us, it takes us back to the war years that we experienced, that even that we had a time before we fled, to have had an opportunity to settle in another part of the world. The question then, triumphantly, the question then, in the preliminary context itself, then we begin to ask ourselves, can you remember, can you reflect, can you think when you had to go through the crucibles of war, to have witnessed it and to have survived it? So when you speak as a survivor, you speak from experience, that experience that has brought you to where you are, and how painful and how challenging it can be if you live within the context of the Ukrainian situation, what is happening today. And then it behooves us, many of us, those of us who are advocates for justice and equity and humanity, keeping in mind that we are all created in the eyes and the goodness of the Almighty. We're created in that image. How can we create an equitable war? An equitable war that seeks justice, equality, fair play, that creates an environment in which people can thrive, people can live. That is the environment we're talking about. And the emphasis today that we make on this issue concerning global migration, the Ukrainian crisis, a call for accountability and justice. Those who have created this mayhem should be held accountable. The global community must do all it can to ensure that the likes of Putin and others who have created this crisis can be made to pay to account. And I think we're glad that that there are war crime investigators who are there in the Ukraine, documenting all of these things. It's quite disheartening to see where the war is. It's disheartening to see the challenges that mothers and elders and children and innocent people who were just going about their normal business, trying to live a decent life, uh, in the pursuit of happiness, and live in a country that they love, they cherish, and they believe in. See where we are today, the kind of difficult situation that we find ourselves in, when the weak and the meek are being trampled upon, and taking advantage of. How we create this environment? How can we have this conversation around this idea, ensuring that the weak and the vulnerable are giving an avenue through which they can be able to live a life in decency. So today we pray for those besieged in Mariupol. That there can be a way out of this particular situation. That there can be a way out. That the wounded and the afflicted. We learned only 20 were able to get out yesterday. Quite discouraging. Keeping in mind that there are thousands of people there in Mariupol. How do we create an environment that the global community, that peace ambassadors, people of goodwill, the churches, the advocates of peace and equity can take a stand? The United Nations itself, Gutierrez was there, and can create this leverage through which there can be an avenue in which Mariupol and the siege on it can come to an end. What a challenging situation we find ourselves in, brothers and sisters. And that's the situation in Ukraine today. What do we say when this level of movement of people is taking place? Where are they going to settle? Where do they settle? Where do they settle? And even some of these people are not, like Antonio Guterres has gone to visit. Some of these people are not willing, you know. Antonio, while Antonio was in Ukraine, Kiev was being bombed. And people ask the question, why are Ukrainians not willing to leave? Why are they settling around the border? I can understand that fully well because I know what it is to move. It's a difficult proposition to just get up in the twinkling of an eye and you live in this place. You were born here, you grew up here, and you get up in the morning and there's a war going on, and you decide, well, you know what? I'm going to go somewhere. And many people have left. People have left because of fear and for their safety. As Bob Marley says, he who fights and run away live to fight another day. But I mean, some people can withstand the situation, but war has no justification in the actual sense of the word. War doesn't. How do we create that enabling environment in which people can thrive? Children, those who hold the future. People can live in peace and in tranquility. How do we gravitate to that? How do we create that enabling environment? An enabling environment that seeks peace, an environment that can encourage people living up to their full potential. This mass migration that is taking place. I mean, trust me, the reality of the matter. I was talking to somebody just yesterday, and they said, "Oh, this war started. We thought it was just practically going to be, like a couple of days." Well, that was the the view of pundits. You know, those who felt that it was just going to be a cakewalk for Russia, and that was going to be the end of it. In a couple of days, Ukraine was going to be overrun, and that will be the end of the story. But here we are, you know, here we are. This is where we find ourselves. You know, Antonio had gone to see how he could find a way. I'm talking about the UN Secretary General. You know, Antonio Guterres had gone to see to find a way to bring an end to have ceasefire. Well, yeah, here is the sad part of the story. He had visited Moscow, and while arriving in Kiev, the Russians were bombing. Hate doesn't help us. It doesn't take us anywhere. How do we create an environment in which this framework of tolerance will be appreciated? That we all not going to think the same way. We're not going to go to the same churches. We're not going to belong to the same group or the same organizations. But we can live in a society that is civilized, a society that encourages stability, peace. I don't think the world was thinking in this direction as to whether in this century, in the 21st century, the world could gravitate, especially for countries in Europe, NATO could gravitate to the level of anarchy that is taking place. Well, but this started all since February of 2014, when the Russian forces invaded Crimea. And well, we are eyewitnesses. We can give an account of what occurred, what took place, and how the Crimea region was taken over by Russia. This is where we find ourselves. So we come to lift up our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, and we pray that even those who are held captive in Russia and its entirety can begin to see the light. And I've said to people many times that you don't understand totalitarianism. You haven't witnessed war. You don't have a deep understanding of what it is, what it means to fight a war. You know, because you probably haven't lived it. You watch it in the movies, but the reality of the matter is you haven't witnessed it. It's not something that you've seen, you've lived to experience it. Because if you do, it's counterintuitive that you can have a better perspective and know the evil that it brings and what it means to witness and live in a war zone. It's a challenging proposition. Nobody wants to see that. I mean, trust me, I don't think even what's prevailing in Ukraine, when kids are traumatized just by the environment, the intensity, the bombings and the artillery and what is taking place. I mean, you see it even from the news. It's pretty scary. And I share with somebody that look, this is a very difficult situation, and in the world in which we live, I mean, it's quite a challenging environment, and the reality of the matter is that those of us who are proponents of peace uh, need a call on the global community to rally, to find a way to bring this anarchy to an end, to bring an end to the violence, to stop this war, to stop this madness, the madness that is taking place in Ukraine, to stop the suffering of the children, the suffering of mothers and babies whose life is being cut. It's being cut pretty short. It's not the way to the future in the 21st century. It must end. It must come to an end. And that's the clarion call that we come to make today on this Sunday. The clarion call we come to make today on this Lord's Day. The clarion call, because those of us who come, like Jesus says, I have come so that they may see. I've come to set the captives free. I've come to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. I've come to ensure that those impoverished and those who have been denied the basic social rights, equitable rights, inalienable rights, that they are protected. That's the emphasis we make today. That's the call today. That there can be peace. That our brothers and sisters, our mothers, children in all parts of Ukraine, and even those who are on the march as we speak, those who are fleeing, that God can save them. That there can be an opportunity in which this war comes to an end. And we can begin to sing songs of freedom, songs of justice, songs of equity. Songs of equality. That is what we need. This particular time, that's the emphasis we make. What the world needs right now is it's not anarchy. What the world needs right now is civility. What the world needs right now is peace. What the world needs right now is to make sure that the Ukrainian war can come to an end and the captives can be set free and there's equity for all. That's the word we seek. That's the word we look forward to. A word in which all are treated equal, that there's respect for human dignity. I mean, it's quite alarming and quite amazing to see what's the destruction that is taking place. I mean, in city like Mariupol, Bucha, and all these places, and the mayhem that we've witnessed over the past 2 months. It's quite alarming. It's pretty scary. So we come today, we come today proclaiming the good news for the captives to be set free. We come proclaiming justice for Ukraine. We come proclaiming that there must be accountability. We come proclaiming, urging the global community to take a stand to bring this violence to an end, to bring this nightmare to an end, and to ensure that there is justice and equality to stop this mass movement, a legitimate mass movement of people from their land, to end this level of discrimination, this level of lynching that is taking place in Ukraine. It must come to an end. We'll take a musical break. When we come back, then we wrap up our conversation today. But I think it's quite historically important and significant that we come to make this call today, to make this emphasis today, to bring this nightmare to an end. We can do this. We can do this. This is our call. All of us, the global community, people of goodwill, people who know right from wrong, that we can sit and let this continue to happen to a group of people in the 21st century, when we have had wars and counterclaims and claims, illegitimate claims of what's coming from the power that be. It must end. And profoundly in a just and ethical way, I can declare today that if there is a God of justice, mighty would rain down. If there is a God of justice, this nightmare will come to an end. If there's a God of justice that is always speaking for the poor and the weak and the meek, this will come to an end. We can't take this anymore. We have to call a spade a spade. This level of violence is irresponsible, evil, and quite draining, quite discouraging to see how brutal humanity can be to their brothers and sisters. It's trying to lead the world. Must end. This must end. This must end. The brothers and sisters in Ukraine must be liberated. The brothers and sisters in Ukraine must have peace. The brothers and sisters in Ukraine It must come to an end. I'll take you to memory lane. I'm going to take you back all the way to Soweto during those years of inhumane treatment and evil perpetrated against our South African brothers and sisters, all the way from Nigeria. Here comes Brother Sonny Okunsi. Sonny Okunsu here, taking us all the way back to yesteryears. Fire in Soweto, Apatai in South Africa is the same as what is prevailing in Ukraine, and we want to call the global community's attention to that. And we are speaking on behalf of the poor and the meek and the weak, urging the international community to create an avenue in which there will be peace and that there will be tranquility. Those who are suffering will get to have peace. Those who are going through difficulties at this very moment, a considerable level of global migration, force, forceful migration that is taking place at the moment as we sit here. We thought is prudent and that to be able to speak to this. From a theological context, I'll read you these few verses. It's coming from Luke 4:18. It reads thus: "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because He has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free." That's the current situation in Ukraine. The Spirit of the Lord is upon us today, speaking through the lenses of liberation, speaking through the prophetic vision of Isaiah, speaking through the prophetic vision of the one who comes in the name of the Lord, speaking through the prophetic vision of Yahweh, the one who is the liberator of the weak and the meek. We come declaring today the good news for liberation, the good news for justice, the good news for equity, the good news that is urging our people all around the world, people of goodwill, those within the global community, the framework of justice, those who believe in peace, those who believe in tolerance, those who see the world irrespective of what it is and ask questions. Then we come to their calling on the word to pay keen attention to what is happening in Ukraine. And we want to declare that the war must end, that there must be peace, there must be equity, there must be justice, there must be accountability in the Ukrainian crisis. I want to thank you, my brothers and sisters, for being a part of this particular conversation today. And it is our hope and prayer that we come back to look at another topic another time. We are going to find a way to open our lines to have one or two persons to be a part of our conversation. We want to thank you for watching this monologue today, reflecting on the historical significance and what February 24th, 2022 has done up to now. The incredible level of suffering, the abuse of power, and those who are responsible, those that are creating the mayhem in Ukraine, we believe they should be held accountable. We think the international community and even our own government here in the U.S. want to challenge them to do all they can to ensure that we can stand up. We are a beacon of freedom. We are a beacon of justice. We are a beacon of not only hospitality, but we are a beacon of democracy. And if the lights must shine, if this is the city on the hill, then we speak in that global context for the world. That we as a people and as a nation must stand up to make sure that our brothers and sisters in Ukraine are liberated. That's the essence of who we are, and that's the American ideal, and that is what we profess to globally. So we make that clarion call today. We'll take the last musical break. When we come back, we wrap up. Oh yes, Guns and Roses. Lucky Dubie bringing us to an end here of this global conversation today on global migration. I want to thank you for joining us. It's been quite an interesting conversation as we've been reflecting very briefly on what is happening in Ukraine and the challenges associated with the mass movement of people, which is something that is very tragic as we see what is taking place there. And we want to make the emphasis and stress the importance for people level headed to come together to begin to retrospect on what is taking place and find a way towards an amicable solution to the current situation, the current crisis in Ukraine. I want to thank you for the opportunity. I'm hoping that we come back again here on the radio service and the TV service of Christian Vision Broadcasting Network. We've been transmitting to you from Western Pennsylvania today, highlighting the issue of global migration and a call for justice with the current situation of what's taking place in Ukraine. What an incredible opportunity has been to be able to engage with you. We think there's a need for accountability. We stress the need for justice. And those of us who are proponents of peace and equity and reconciliation within the Christian context, we want to come together today to vehemently declare the need for peace, the need for equity, the need for the world to see what's happening in Ukraine to bring that nightmare to an end and make sure that people can return, people can be repatriated, and people can go back to their normal lives and they can begin to rebuild. We think that is needed within the Ukrainian context. We think as we sit and as we speak, there is an incredible need for that to be done, and one cannot overemphasize that. So I want to thank you so much for being a part of this particular production. God willing, we'll be back again another time, another Sunday, as we reflect again on another important and interesting topic: global migration. What produces it? Why the mass movement of people would take place at a certain point in time in every given geographical location. Why people move? I mean, nobody just get up in the morning and say, well, they're walking away from an environment they were born and grew up in, but this is where we find ourselves and why people move, the essence of it, and the need for us to take into account to have empathy this time for our brothers and our sisters. We need it during this very challenging time. We want to say a prayer for Ukraine. We want to say a prayer for refugees. We want to say a prayer for those who are moving. We want to say a prayer for all of those brothers and sisters who are massively displaced, internally displaced, people whose homes have been taken away, brought down to the ground, destroyed. Those within the besieged city of Mariupol. We pray for them tonight that God can create a way through which they can have peace. We thank you for the opportunity to be with us, and it's been a great time sharing. The next time we're going to find a way to open the lines to see whether if you love to call in to start a conversation, and that we can be able to talk to you in the most polite way and get a viewpoint as to how you see it. But I want to thank you so much for listening. It's been quite a fascinating conversation. Just past a few minutes after an hour. And I want to take this time now to say thank you so much for being a part of this particular edition of the program. Justice Forum. And this is Zezapata. Thanking you so much for listening and hoping that you can join us again. We'll be back here another time. Take care. So long. All the way from West Africa, Miata family is going to take us home.